Welcome to the Phoenix Checklist, Turning Complex Problems into Simple Solutions. Written by Joseph C. Campbell, published by Campbell & Company Publishing, LLC. Much like the well-known poem Footprints in the Sand, which came to us from anonymity, so has the Phoenix Checklist. As its enigmatic past, it claims birth from the clandestine parent, none other than the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. For those few who might not be familiar with who the CIA is, they are one of the principal intelligence gathering agencies of the United States federal government, headquartered in Langley, Virginia. A few miles west of Washington, D.C., its employees, often referred to as agents, operate from the U.S. embassies and other locations around the world. At its core, the CIA's role is to solve problems, and the agents doing the problem solving are typically on foreign soil and unfriendly environments operating with limited resources. Sounds like just another typical day at the office, right? This is where the power of the Phoenix Checklist is derived from. It drives out-of-the-box thinking as a result of the focused questions it asks, as well as the order in which they are asked. At its core, the Phoenix Checklist is a framework which is broken into two sections. The first is the problem phase, where the goal is to define the problem and then collect as much information about it as possible. The second phase is the plan phase, which takes the information collected in the first section, i.e. the problem phase, and uses it to build a plan to address the problem. Within each of these sections are a number of challenges as control questions which force the facilitator, the person either doing the solving or leading the problem-solving team, to an introspection of themselves. As one thing all people are really good at is fooling themselves. Not only is it easy to do, it's even easier to do when problem solving. In addition, the Phoenix Checklist has the ability to reduce context bias from the problem solving process. Yet I'm sure many out there are asking, what is context? Well, what role does it play in problem solving process as our context is created by the world around us and adds bias to our views? This context bias then becomes a limiting factor preventing us from reaching our problem solving goals. How? Well, with this, when we look at the model of the Phoenix Checklist, as mentioned before, we have the problem on the right-hand side and the plan on the left-hand side. Basically, context bias is built up with our existing experiences, and in future videos we'll talk more about this. For example, if you happen to be from the Midwest of the United States, a soft drink is typically referred to as a pop, whereas if you travel to the South, it's referred to as a soda or a quote-unquote Coke. This premise of context is what we build up around ourselves every day. In addition to context, humans actually tend to fool themselves a bit. If a human believes themselves to be a hammer and the problem to be a nail, well, then obviously you can see the result of this is every problem becomes a nail. The concept behind the Phoenix Checklist is to have inflection points in which you're actually asking yourself, is there really a problem? And again, walking through each one of these steps one by one in a hierarchical format leads you to certain conclusions to, if you do have a problem, what is that problem really? A lot of times we enter into problems and we believe that they are set things, and if we really look at them with introspection and remove the context bias we place on them, we may find that they're a totally different problem or not a problem at all. The results of this phase feed the second phase, the plan phase, which we go through and we begin to determine very clearly what our plan needs to be, our plan of action to address the problem. And again, as you can see here in this mind map, again, it's a very detailed step-by-step, and again, the idea is to also remove the context from the plan phase. Again, if we're acting as a hammer and everything we see is a nail, and what we really need is a screw, then we have a problem. So the idea behind the plan phase is to distill out what the true plan should be to solve the true problem. So as we look through many of these questions in the problem phase, why is it necessary to solve a problem? What are the benefits you'll receive by solving the problem? What are the unknowns? Again, there are many questions, basically what I refer to as inflection points, which the process takes you through. And they are recursive in nature. So again, they're designed not to be trick questions, however, to provide inflection points. In future videos, we'll talk a little bit more how these work together, because it's half problem solving, half psychological exam. Because one of the things we as humans are good at are creating our own problems. One of the things I'd like to say is basically a person's personal value proposition is proportional to the problems they create. People like to create problems. Problems provide value propositions for people. People will create a problem to create value for themselves when there is no real problem that exists. So part of this exploratory phase in phase one helps us get past that and look to, do we really have a problem? What is the context of our problem? Is our context of the problem correct in the setting that we're in? You know, think of an agent, a CIA agent placed on foreign soil in a hostile condition, possibly in firefight or in harm's way. Think of the context that they're operating in. And one of the keys is it's very easy, especially when put under pressure, to operate and fall back into set context and forget about all the opportunities one may have around themselves in that given environment. This again is where the Phoenix checklist really shines in providing that ability to separate what the perception or context is of a situation versus that of what the reality is, bringing the problem-solving leader or the problem-solving person back into the moment rather than, you know, vexing on what they believe the potential problem is. So once we've solved the first phase, in other words, we've identified the problem, we've distilled it down that we do have a problem, and here is the true neutral context of the problem, we have to create a solution. And a lot of times, a solution can be to a problem can be bigger than the problem itself. So this is one of the places where it starts out. Can you solve the whole problem? So what if you solve half of the problem? A lot of people, you know, I would revert back to the elephant, to eating the elephant scenario. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So with this, do you have to solve the whole problem? Can you solve part of the problem? What would you like the resolution to be? Because again, once we've identified that there is a problem, what do you really want the solution to be? You know, do you want it to be a nail? Do you want it to be a screw? Again, it's very important to kind of distill it. The second thing is with this is, can you picture it? Again, you know, visualization is a very powerful tool. So imagination, visualization is driven by creativity. Now, might sound a little bit hokey, but it is a very effective tool. So again, as you can see through many of these, and I won't step through each and every one of these because we'll cover out some of these in a further video on this, you can kind of see how this will walk you through. And then down at the bottom, it's very important, how will you know when you succeed? This is one of the biggest challenges out there, and I see this in business all the time. So how do you define success? Success many times in problem solving is left far too open, and you spend so many resources just attempting to solve a problem that's already been solved. And again, that comes back to a lot of our context bias, and we'll talk more about that in future videos. With this, if you want to learn more about the Phoenix checklist and how to apply it, there's several links on the screen, and I'll put links below. You can also go to www.decisionmap.info to find out more information on the Phoenix checklist. We also offer preset mind maps in 20+ formats for the Phoenix checklist, and we'll do a video on that shortly to kind of walk you through how you can use mind mapping techniques in the Phoenix checklist. We'll also be doing a future video on context bias itself as applied to the Phoenix checklist and just in general, and how that shapes our perception of various problems, etc. So again, hopefully this was helpful. Again, please subscribe below. Please hit the like button if it helped you out, and watch for future videos.